Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that finds it ironic that it takes 12 steps to get a beer out of his fridge. It's Dale.
You got to double up. You can make them 6 if you want.
Is that your 12-step program?
That's my 12-step program, but I do it in half time. So
It
it's a 6-step program. I got a long stride, you know.
Do you go out for a quiet beer followed by 10 noisy ones? Or are they all quiet beers?
I don't know. What's a quiet beer?
I don't know.
I'm lost on
I'm just going to have a quiet beer.
No, hell no, we ain't having quiet beer. You got to start with a loud pow. You snap the top and take her down.
The first one you chug it, then the rest of them are just
along for the ride.
Yeah.
You got to jump start it, man.
You do. You got to. Yeah, you got to. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, that first one's going quick. If it takes a while for that first one to be gone, there ain't gonna be many more.
Hey.
No, be like today ain't today.
Oh.
Oh.
What's going on, dude?
Well, guess what? Today is not the same old, same old.
It's not, is it?
It's 200, man.
This is our 200th episode.
Congratulations, man.
Man.
How about that?
Yep.
200.
It's awesome. It's awesome. 200.
It is. I think it's a big deal.
It is.
I'm pretty proud of us.
Yeah, and we've got something special going on today.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
And it's going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Before we get to it, though, you got any good shout-outs or anybody you want to mention before we get going?
Yeah, I do, man. I got a... How about that? It is not an Apple podcast review, though you can leave one if you like. But it is a Spotify... What do you call this?
A response, I guess.
Yeah, Spotify response. There you go. It is a Spotify response. And it comes from Ann, A-N, Winter, like it's Ann Winter, or Ann Winter.
Not spring, summer, or fall?
No, it's not A Winter, it's Ann Winter. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, excuse me, it comes from A.N. Winter. And it says, I love this podcast. It's a nice balance between a well-researched, respectful done podcast with a little speculation thrown in just for fun. Donnie and Dale are a great host and great to listen to. How about that?
Man.
That's pretty cool, ain't it?
It's very cool.
I like that. Thank you so much, Ann Winter, for dropping that in there. And you can drop yourself in there one, too, and we'll give you a shout-out.
Yeah.
We'll try. These, it says 7 days ago, but I just saw it today, so...
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe
that Spotify stuff's weird, man.
Yeah, so it don't pop up as quick as we'd like, but we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. It means a lot.
You know, it's something we don't mention a lot, but, you know, everybody needs to check out our social medias, our Facebook, Instagram, and stuff, because
YouTube.
We do post pictures on there related to the cases.
Right.
Yeah, the victims and people involved and the
landscapes and whatever we find interesting, we like to pass that along.
Yeah, we do.
So it helps with, you know, if you're listening to something, you go, man, I wonder what this guy looked like, or what was going on, or where was that at? We always try to help out with that.
Yeah, check out our socials.
Some visual concepts.
Yeah, man, you're using big words for me.
We better get out of here for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to have a great episode today, and it is 200, so celebrate that a little bit today while you're thinking about us.
Yeah, we've got a special guest on the show today.
We do.
You know, in the last few episodes, we interviewed a polygraph examiner, David Bryant.
Cool. Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
And we're trying to keep that same theme. We're interviewing people who help law enforcement in several different ways.
Yeah, very unique stuff.
Yeah, they don't get enough credit for what they do.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know exactly what to do or how it works. I mean, you always hear, in every story we do, we always hear about, you know, a polygraph or this or that or something, but what do you really know about that, or forensics or DNA or dogs or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, you hear it in every episode, but, you know, to get inside, you don't really know.
That's right.
So that's where we're trying to go.
Yeah, and we've brought up in several episodes where canines have been brought in to help law enforcement or help look for somebody, to track someone, to look for human remains. We've talked about that stuff.
A wide variety.
Yeah. And man, and me and you've talked about this off the air, and
at length.
We don't know much about it.
Right.
We don't, and I wanted to learn more about it.
Exactly.
So we've got a guy that's from right here in North Carolina. His name is Jason Purgason.
I think it's the guy.
I think he is the guy.
Yeah, let's go with the guy.
The guy.
We have the guy today.
His name is Jason Purgason, and he is owner and operator of Highland Canine Training, LLC.
Sweet.
Yeah, and they have a massive program for training dogs.
Let's get him on here and let him tell us about it.
So we want to welcome Jason Purgason to the show. Welcome, Jason.
How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Well, man, we're great. Thank you for being on the show and participating with this.
Yeah, especially as busy as you are. We appreciate your time.
Yes.
No, my pleasure, for sure.
Yeah, we wanted to learn more about this, how canines are trained for different areas and what all's involved and what it takes.
And what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. We want to learn some stuff, so we want you to train us.
Good one.
And maybe we can get a dog treat when we're done. Tell us a little bit about you and what got you into training canines.
Okay. Well, that's a loaded question. Pretty long story. I'll give you sort of the Reader's Digest version. Grew up around dogs, much like everybody else's story had them. We used to breed labs when I was younger. Got into training when I was super young, just because I was doing a little bit of work with dogs and showing dogs and that sort of stuff. Again, all Labradors, but got into law enforcement and ended up being selected to handle a police dog. And I'll say that handling a dog and training a dog are two real different things. But handled a dog, got fairly comfortable with that. Had done quite a bit of training previously. Ended up training a number of dogs for our department, became a supervisor. I did attend a training program here in North Carolina to learn how to train dogs, particularly police and working dogs. Got out of law enforcement about a decade later, and ended up going to work for another company here in North Carolina that trains police dogs, and was there for a while. And then my wife and I started our own business here in Harmony, North Carolina, which is really sort of middle of nowhere, to be honest with you. We've been here 17 years. We've got a bit of a multifaceted business in that we train a variety of dogs. We do dogs for police and military, working dogs. We also do service dogs for individuals with disabilities. We train a lot of pet dogs and focus on behavior modification, dealing specifically with dogs with aggression, that sort of thing. And then we also have a school for dog trainers where we teach people how to train dogs. So we get people in here from all over the U.S. and actually all over the world. We've had folks from a little over 35 countries now.
Wow.
Fans. So again, those are civilians, law enforcement, military, again from the U.S., from outside the U.S. as well. So like I said, we've been here since early 06.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys pretty much do a little bit of everything, didn't you?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
We don't do guide dogs for the blind, and we don't do hunting dogs, but we do pretty much everything in between those two.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
So I guess my first question is, Jason, what kind of dogs are typically used for training for helping law enforcement? I mean, is it a particular dog that is recommended, or can any dog
What are you saying? Is it like a certain breed, or is it just a certain mentality? What's better?
Well, to answer that question accurately, it's really sort of both. And I say that because not all dogs can be a police dog, obviously. There are breeds that are selected more frequently than others. And, within those particular breeds, some dogs have more of an aptitude for it than others. Typical breeds that we train for law enforcement, military, is your German Shepherds, as most people are familiar with, Shepherds and Malinois. We've actually done over the years a lot of crosses, meaning mixed breeds between German Shepherds and Malinois, and those are actually oftentimes incredible candidates for the work. We also do a lot of sporting breeds too. In addition to that, we do Labradors, for example. We do tons and tons of labs. We do some golden retrievers, not as many as we do on the lab side of things, but here in the last, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years, the German short-haired pointer has grown in popularity as what we call a single-purpose police dog that does detection and trails people or finds people who may be either missing or fleeing from law enforcement. And then you've got the old standby when it comes to tracking or trailing dogs, and that's the bloodhound. So we've done a lot of those over the years as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes a German Shepherd, that breed, really good for the canine, besides him, what you always have in your head as far as the police dog look, rin tin tin, that kind of thing? Is it certain about that breed that makes it better?
Well, you kind of can sort of lump the Shepherd and Malinois together in that, they are both European breeds. Both of those have been used, the Shepherd longer than the Malinois, not necessarily more, but longer than the Malinois. The Shepherd's been used in addition to the Malinois in European competition sports, and that selective breeding in Europe and that focus on those dogs' ability to perform well in a lot of those European competition sports is what's made them excel here in the U.S. and globally as working dogs.
Right.
They have the aptitude for it, the requisite drives it takes in order to do that type of work, and they're overall relatively social. Their agility, their olfactory system, keen sense of sight, all things that are factored in that make them really good working dogs.
Okay, so they're pretty much 5-star in every category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they bred for this, or
is that where they came from, you think?
Yeah.
Because you always see them, like, even back to watching Hogan's Heroes, they always had every guard dog you ever see is a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
German Shepherd, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Shepherds have been used for years in law enforcement and military work, probably longer than a lot of other breeds consistently. The Malinois grown in popularity tremendously over the last, I'd say probably 20, 25 years. 30 years ago, you never heard of one. That's definitely changed. Again, they're breeding and selection for, again, a lot of those competition sports. There's, in today's climate in Europe, there are not a ton of people sitting around saying, hey, let's breed dogs for law enforcement, military in the United States.
Right.
They're breeding more for competition sports. And the dogs that, don't make it a lot of times in their sports or don't excel in their sports end up being sold as police and military working dogs here in the United States and in other countries as well.
So how old can a dog be to start training? I mean, is there a certain age? Or
well, I guess and how long does it train? And I guess that factors in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk about averages here a little bit.
Okay.
When I got started, in police dogs in like 1995. And back then, everybody was looking for this 2 to 3 year old dog. And everybody wanted that 2 to 3 year old dog from Europe because it was, it was fully matured, both physically and mentally. You knew what you had. You weren't going to get a lot of changes in this dog as a result of, experience and maturation so much. Then, 9/11 hit, and the bomb dogs really took off. Pre 9/11, finding a bomb dog was really sort of a needle in a haystack. Well, after 9/11, everybody sort of got into the bomb dog business and really sort of wiped the market out. And that wasn't just in the United States. You got to keep in mind this was sort of globally.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
And as such, all those 2-3 year old really nice European dogs were all purchased up and all wiped out, and the ones who were a little older got bought up, and the ones who were a little younger got bought up, and they sort of wiped out that European market. And as a result, what vendors here in the U.S. were able to get were substantially younger dogs, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 months. So what really sort of happened was the market drove those younger dogs, and the vendors had to have an explanation or selling point for their old clients who were looking for those 2 to 3 year old dogs. And basically what they came up with was, hey, if you buy a younger dog, you're going to be able to work it longer. You're going to get a longer working life out of it. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but that has been the belief now for many, many years. And as a result, what we're seeing now are dogs that are hitting the streets substantially younger than they did 20 or 30 years ago. Our training program takes, for our dual dogs, our training program takes right around 4 months. I will tell you that our program takes quite a bit longer than most people in the industry. There are a lot of folks out there doing it a lot quicker than us, but our focus is on quality, not speed. I'll sort of leave it at that.
Wow, I would have thought it'd take a lot longer than that. That's impressive to me.
Yeah.
And when you say dual, what do you mean by what's the two things, or at least dual purpose?
Okay, so dogs, police and military working dogs generally are sort of classified into two categories. What's called a single-purpose dog and what they refer to as a dual-purpose dog. A single-purpose dog typically does more than one thing, but their primary focus generally is detection. They can also do trailing and some other things in addition to that. A dual-purpose dog is one that does patrol work. It bites people, or it's trained to bite people, or demonstrates some aggression.
Oh, I got you.
Do suspect apprehensions, handler protection, extractions, those sorts of things.
So basically, one you can let out of the car, and either he can track him down, or you can use him for protection, or to take somebody down. Whatever it calls for.
Yeah, what we refer to as a patrol or a dual dog is those are prick-eared, bitey dogs with an attitude.
Those are the ones you don't want to be on the other end of, I'm assuming.
Not typically.
Wow, pretty cool.
So how old are the dogs when they start training?
You're saying, is there a limit where you gotta let them wait so long?
Yeah, do they have to be weaned from their mother before they start training? Or, I don't know this stuff.
We learned
as a general rule, we don't. Everybody loves puppies. I do not. As a general rule, we try to stay away from puppies. We unfortunately cannot as much as we want to. Again, most of the police dogs that we're training, police or other working dogs for militaries or governments, are European imports. So we're getting those dogs from Europe. And when we ship them in from Europe, they are typically in the range between somewhere around 14 to 20 months.
Okay.
So then once they arrive here, we start a training program with them almost right away. We test and evaluate them again, make sure they're good after the flight, and then we start to get them going right away. In the event that we have to start with puppies, and we do, and I hate to say it, but we're currently inundated with puppies right at the moment. We start with them right around 8 weeks of age.
Wow.
Man.
So we're not doing hardcore stuff. We're doing a lot of environmental socialization with people. We're getting them into places and around things, and exposing them to all sorts of folks and traffic and things that would typically cause issues or problems for your average pet dog.
Make them spook-proof, kind of.
Sliding doors at Lowe's or Home Depot can be a real big issue. Mm-hmm. Forklifts, hand dryers, again, tractor-trailer trucks on the interstate. All of those things can create some huge environmental issues that can cause these dogs to what we call wash out, meaning that they're incapable of doing the work because they don't have the environmental stability. So our big focus with those puppies for the first several months of their life is to make sure that they have the environmental stability to get the job done, because that's usually the thing that's typically going to cause the dog to wash out. It's not generally a lack of desire or drive or some inability to train them. It's that environmental instability that's going to end up getting them booted from the program. We've got a huge success rate with it. Our washout rates are super, super low, which is fortunate for us, but it is a lot of work. I will say that, to get those dogs out. I think I know we've got one litter right now of 6, and we're actually working with that entire litter. They're probably 12 weeks old right now, 11 or 12 weeks old, and then we've got some right in front of them that are 6 or 7 months old, and then we've got a group in front of them that are right around a year, a little more than a year old, and they're getting ready to start a handler school here next month.
So how do you know if a certain dog is good for a certain task? Like if you want a bomb dog, or do you want a cadaver dog? How do you know?
How you differentiate?
Yeah. If this dog is going to be good for this, or this dog is going to be good for that. How do you know, or do you just?
Or do you not?
Well, again, they're all going to have. When we're looking for dogs, we're looking for a sort of standardized skill set. We want a dog that's going to hunt for something that they can't see, obviously. A lot of times that's a ball or a toy. So we're looking for dogs that are super environmentally stable. We want to make sure that their trainability is really high, they're super social, and that they'll hunt. They're gonna have some drive for a ball or some other toy, and they're willing to work to hunt for it when it's out of their sight. So those are some real key things that we're looking for, sort of across the board with a lot of these dogs. Now, how do we determine which one gets to be a bomb dog and which one of them ends up being a drug dog? That's something where we just have to really sort of spend some time with that dog, figure out their personality, overall sort of temperament, et cetera, et cetera. For example, when we're testing dogs or testing younger dogs, and we've got a number of batteries that we sort of put them through to figure out their aptitude and temperament and those sorts of things. One of the things that we'll do is, sort of take them into a building or take them into an unknown area that they're not familiar with. We may end up having them retrieve a toy or hunt for it when it's out of sight. And some of them are just super eager, bulldozing through that building like a bull in a china shop to get to that toy or ball or whatever it is we may have hidden from them. And then other ones are way more methodical and far more deliberate about how they approach things and move through a building. The one that's more deliberate, obviously, is our bomb dog candidate. The bull in the china shop we can get by with that one being a drug dog. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Dog.
Yeah. So, we don't want our bomb dogs to be super rambunctious or even super clumsy, with some coordination issues and not having any rear end or foot awareness where they're bumping into stuff, because those would be pretty short lived if we put those in that position.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good for a bomb dog, I wouldn't think.
No.
Yeah.
So when you say,
go ahead. We train a lot more. We train a lot more drug dogs than we do bomb dogs. We're probably somewhere in the range of probably 10 or 20 to 1.
Wow.
Drug dogs to bomb dogs. Yeah, the demand for the bomb dogs is still, even in today's climate, not quite as high demand as still the drug dogs are.
Wow, makes sense though.
So when you said you get say you got some in from Europe or whatever, do you just bring those in yourself, or are those sending over like from a certain place, like for a certain military camp or police force or wherever? They send them to you to train them, or are you just buying them yourself to train them up and then divvy them back out to wherever they're needed?
Yeah, so we're buying them from a broker in Europe. Okay. Our particular broker is one that we've been working with for decade and a half now. So we've got a really good relationship with them. So we're purchasing those dogs. We're paying to ship them here into the United States as what are considered green dogs. And a green dog is a dog that is pre-tested, pre-selected, has all the requisite drives and aptitude for the work, but they don't have any training.
Yeah.
So they come here green, as we call it, and then we spend the next several months training them.
Okay.
So what happens is we bring them in and offer them for sale. How many we bring in really sort of depends on demand, time of year, budgets, those sorts of things. A lot of your law enforcement budgets, whether they be local, state, or federal, those budgets come in and out at certain times. So there are busier seasons when law enforcement's buying those dogs and slower times. So we have to adjust to meet those demands as they come. But in large part, we're buying them, we're training them, we're offering them for sale.
Okay.
Like you said, some of them go out to law enforcement, but there are some that go out to private sectors. I guess people who have their own search business. Is that something that y'all cater to?
Yeah. So we do, again, government, NGO, civilian markets here inside the U.S. as well as outside the U.S. So we do foreign government, military and law enforcement agencies as well. We've worked with a number of those over the years. We've actually trained dogs for civilian sector. We've gotten into some really sort of weird or obscure things over the years doing that with some detection dogs. Things that people either said couldn't be done or things that people weren't willing to do. Mm. So we do deal with both markets and have for years.
Man, this is cool.
Yeah,
I want to come up there.
Yeah. So let's say you're training a dog for law enforcement. The officer has to go through the training with the dog. Is that right?
Yeah, with us they do. Yeah, every company does a little different, but we do require them to come through a sort of standardized minimum training program with us. Generally 4 weeks, so they're spending a month up here. The dog's pre-trained when they get here, so the dog knows its job. It's just a matter of teaching the human part, or as we refer to it sometimes, the hard part. Training the hard part starts at that point. And they go through that program here at our place. Again, typically it's 4 weeks. And then at that point, they go through a certification process. And when they pass that, they're back at home and hitting the streets and hopefully making a difference.
Yeah. You said some dogs are awash. You're saying that all dogs just aren't cut out for this?
Well, a majority of dogs here in the U.S. are not cut out for it. Mm-hmm. I'll just be with you. Most of your domestic bred German Shepherds and Belgian Malinois, those bred and raised here in the U.S. typically do not have the aptitude for this type of work.
Wow. Did not know.
Well, they've probably been domesticated down from that, strict breeding, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
does that make sense?
Americans breed dogs based on how that dog looks, because that's how people make decisions about what they want to buy here. Whereas the European focus is more on how the dog works. The U.S. focus is more on what the dog looks like.
Yeah, I get it.
And because we bred for that single trait, the what does it look like kind of trait, we've lost, unfortunately, over the years, we've lost a lot of ability in those dogs.
So they're breeding the good part out of them.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
Well, in a lot of regards, they really are. Yeah.
Wow.
What they were initially selected for and initially bred for. Yeah, we see that. We see that really sort of falling to the wayside.
Well, you never think about stuff.
No, you don't even think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
So let's say you got a dog that you're training, a cadaver dog.
Okay.
Do law enforcement keep these dogs, or do these dogs put out in the private sector? Civilians own these dogs and they participate in these searches, or how does that work?
Typically, most of the dogs that we work with are going to law enforcement organizations, and as such, they are attached to some government entity that supports that dog team.
Okay.
As a result, a majority of their work is going to come from that municipality or city county agency. And again, we do some against civilian dogs. We do them for school systems. We do them for private individuals. Again, not as many. Majority of them are for law enforcement and government agencies. Now, when it comes to cadaver dogs, for example, a majority of those that we train are actually for civilians. We have done a number of them for government agencies, but again, a majority of your cadaver dogs that are operating currently in the United States are on a civilian and typically volunteer basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess because they're so specialized, right? So, I mean, you
Well,
don't need one of those every day.
Yeah, you don't need them every day. I tell people a lot of times with cadaver dogs and our urban search and rescue dogs, I say they're kind of like insurance in that you pay into them in time and resources and hope you never have to use them.
Yeah.
So they are used so sporadically that a lot of government agencies just don't see the need to have one. As such, they're usually calling on civilian volunteers to come in and help.
Okay.
Again, there are some agencies that have them throughout the United States, but again, not a ton of them.
So you said that the dogs and the officer will have to be certified together. How often do they get recertified or retested? How often do they?
Or is that even a thing?
Yeah.
The sort of annual industry standard, that industry standard sort of annually. So once a year. Some agencies sort of go above and beyond and do it twice a year. Not many, but some of them do. But most are once a year. So at a minimum, we're oftentimes taking a look at those dog teams once a year. A lot of them come back to us for that recertification, annual recertification. Some of them go to other third-party organizations.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
it's usually a 3-day process for them at least in order to get through all the things that they're doing as far as patrol work, detection, track and trailing. Little shorter for some of those dogs that don't have as many as many jobs that they have to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is really cool.
Yeah. So get into scent dogs a little bit. We've talked about a girl here that's missing here in Cleveland County, Ace a degree, and they brought in scent dogs for her.
It had been raining.
It had been raining that day. How well do dogs do after rain and stuff like that? We've heard different stories, but
We've heard both ways.
Yeah.
It dries better or wet's better because it brings the scent up. So So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so typically those dogs are going to work way better when there's moisture in the environment, even to the point where it's raining, and sometimes when it's raining pretty hard. Drier, arid environments are actually worse for them to work in most of the time.
does the rain keep the scent down low to the ground, or how does that typically work?
And it's more of a sort of an understanding of what human odor is, and one of the things that make up your human odor is bacteria. So your skin has bacteria on it, good bacteria and bad bacteria, and that bacteria consumes those dead skin cells that leave the body. Not to get into too much of a biology lesson or science class here, but so you're shedding dead skin cells all the time. as I tell my students, most of the dust in your house is just dead skin cells laying around on your furniture. That usually gives people the heebie-jeebies. But you're shedding those constantly. So there's a cloud of odor. To dogs, we sort of look like Pigpen from
I was going to say that. On
Charlie Brown.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so we sort of look like Pigpen with this big cloud of dead skin cells and odor and smell around us. Well, the bacteria that thrives on those dead skin cells and creates a substantial amount of that odor production is really sort of a living organism, and as such, it needs water to live. Therefore, those humid environments can provide a really suitable type of environment for those for that bacteria to live. And the dog's olfactory system needs moisture in order to be at its utmost effectiveness as well. If you ever watch a bloodhound work in a drier or a little more arid environment, you'll consistently see them taking their tongue and licking the end of their nose.
Mm-hmm.
Labs and other dogs will do it too. And that is really sort of just an attempt to add some humidity or moisture to that olfactory system.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always, seen dogs with wet noses and stuff, but yeah, it makes total sense.
Wow. Yeah, that moisture is actually helpful. Yeah, I tell people a lot of times dogs will actually track and trail. They'll trail people really well in the rain. They work good in the rain. It's the human handlers that don't work in the rain.
Wow, that's pretty neat. So
typically, if you have a trailing dog that does not do well in the rain, it's because their handler has not conditioned them to work in the rain.
Yeah.
So does that go the same for, like, say, like where we see on TV or whatever, when somebody's running, they jump in the creek and run down the creek or go across the other side to lose the trail? Does that work or no?
No, none of that stuff works. It just makes you go to jail wet, really is what it does. And wet and tired. It's not, if they have a well-trained dog, no, it doesn't help at all.
Awesome.
There's if you ever get a chance, you can look, and I don't remember, so don't quote me on the year or episode, but it's been a number of years ago. The guys at Mythbusters, I'm sure you've seen that TV show. Yeah. They did a couple of episodes on a lot of the movie tricks and stuff that people did in the movies and TV shows to lose the dogs that were tracking them. And what they came to find was that none of those actually worked. They used dead fish and all kinds of nasty stuff to try to throw the dogs off, and what they found was none of it really was effective.
Wow.
Yeah, impressive. I probably said that about 10
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
You got to edit some impressives out, because this is really cool.
So what about the cadaver dogs? I mean, do they train with real human?
Yeah, we read that. Yeah.
Human remains.
Yeah, a lot of you cadaver dog teams are hopefully training with real human remains. I say hopefully. It's difficult for a lot of those teams sometimes to source training aids.
That's a good way to put it.
I.e. body parts.
Right.
Yeah, human bits. So they're difficult to store. They're difficult to procure, more so today than they were 20 years ago. A lot of ethical questions come up in the procurement of body parts, obviously.
Right.
There are workarounds. Barbers have plenty of hair. They sweep up every day. Dentists have plenty of teeth. They pull out of people's heads all the time. You just got to network, and we train. Have historically trained cadaver dogs on 5 distinct sort of categories of odor: hair, bone, teeth, blood, and flesh, trying to vary it as much as possible. We've gotten away from that quite a bit here lately, and you are using a chemically formulated sort of replica as a training aid. One that we've been using for years is called Scent Logics, and it's a remarkable alternative to, actually a better alternative in most every way to the real thing. So they just came out with this cadaver aid probably 2 years ago, I think it was. Don't quote me on that, but something pretty close to it. We've been using their explosive and narcotic aids for years and years. We helped and did some work to help develop some of their aids, bedbug aids, and those sorts of things. So, like I said, we've detection is one of our specialties. Well, we consider it one of our specialties. We've done a lot of research over the years on a variety of subjects and topics relating to detection of lots of different things. Humans, narcotics, explosives, et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, we've gotten into some pretty obscure stuff. We've trained dogs to find bumblebees and bat poop and just kind of all sorts of stuff over the years, and been pretty successful with it so far.
That's crazy. It's just kind of endless, really.
Yeah. So is every dog different? Go ahead.
Yeah, we actually trained, I don't know if it's still the case, but at the time it was the only bumblebee detection dog in the Western Hemisphere. We've since trained another one. Both of those dogs have been tremendously successful.
That's crazy.
And at the time when we did that first one, there was no other one in the Western Hemisphere. Like I said, we've done them for endangered bats and just all sorts of things. The bumblebees are for endangered bumblebees. Like I said, we've done bed bugs, termites, sort of you name it.
That's crazy.
It's amazing to me what you guys can do with those dogs and what the dogs can do with you. It just blows my mind that they're that specialized. I guess it's all in what you do, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the last couple of decades, we've come a long way in sort of being more open-minded to the capabilities of dogs. And as such, I think we as humans limited their abilities for a number of years, just because we didn't, I guess maybe we didn't have the confidence that they were capable of doing a lot of the things that we've since sort of opened our mind to and tried, and the dogs have proven to us that they're completely capable of it. So just need to shut up and listen to the dogs, I guess.
Yeah, and tap into that resource that they have. Yeah, that's crazy. So do all dogs...
Yeah, absolutely.
When they hit on something, remains or drugs or something, do they all signal the same way, or is it just
up to the dog?
Up to the dog and the handler and what they can recognize?
Good question.
It oftentimes is, so a lot of our dogs have a very distinct indication, is what we refer to as a freezing lock. It's one that we've sort of been perfecting over the last probably decade and a half. We actually used to get ridiculed for doing it that way. People made fun of us and made pretty some pretty rough comments about it publicly on social media and that sort of stuff. And we just sort of took it on the chin and kept working. And now here it is, like 15 years later, and what we're seeing is a big part of the industry that's mimicking what we were doing a decade ago. So that's kind of good to see. It really depends on the trainer and how they're most comfortable in teaching that indication. It can sometimes be dictated by the handler or the department who's buying it. There's some fairly consistent strategies amongst dogs depending on the type. Our drug dogs and bomb dogs both do what we call a freeze and lock. A lot of people still teach the traditional sitting and staring behavior with particularly bomb dogs and even a lot of the drug dogs. Cadaver dogs can do I've seen those cadaver dogs do a bunch of different things, everything from barking to sitting and staring to scratching to you name it. We oftentimes still prefer a bit of a scratching behavior out of those dogs because there is a visual indication as to where they gave their response. And we've just found that to be more effective based on experience. personal experience of working those dogs, as well as, the experiences of other handlers that we've had an opportunity to work with and talk to and interview over the years. Cadaver dogs can find themselves in some really tricky situations. Whether you know it or not, we've got a couple podcasts we do as well, and we've interviewed a number of cadaver dog handlers. It's a topic that a lot of people seem to be interested in, and because we've trained a lot of those dogs, we've had requests to sort of share the stories of some of those folks, and they've got some pretty rough stories, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
Some that people don't have a stomach for. I tell everybody that being a cadaver dog handler is not a job for everybody, because by the time a cadaver dog team is called out to a particular scene, no matter what response they come back with, nobody's going to like it. They're either going to come back and say they found something, which nobody wants to hear, or they're going to come back and say they didn't find anything, and oftentimes that's a response nobody wants to hear as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's not good either way.
A lot of this for closure. Yeah, so you're in a pickle when you show up on a scene. Really, you're going to be probably the bearer of bad news either way. So it's a tough job, it really is.
That's crazy.
What was you going to ask, Dale?
I was going to say, we saw something earlier today was talking about cadaver dogs, and we was talking about they could find stuff that had been buried like 800 years and stuff like this, or then up to 12 feet deep and all this stuff. But this 800-year thing's a little much for me to believe. Is that something that's true, or?
That dogs are capable of finding human remains that are that old.
Yeah, they were saying that they was that old, but I'm like, even if it was laying around that long, I mean, there wouldn't be anything left, I wouldn't think.
Human bone can actually stick around for a long time, depending on environmental conditions, depending on a lot of different things. I mean, we've found Paleolithic dogs and people historically, so those things can last a while, but it really oftentimes depends on environmental conditions and how they're preserved.
Yeah.
Is a dog capable of finding them? I'm not going to sit here and say absolutely not, because again, I've been consistently amazed by dogs my entire life and their abilities and capabilities, but I would definitely say it's a bit of a stretch. There are a lot of people out there making tons of claims that simply just are not true. Unfortunately, there have been some pretty big scars, for lack of a better way to put it, on the industry of people in this business for the wrong reason. There's a number of cases come out of Michigan where a lady who had a dog, she was pretty famous at the time. She was on a number of national TV shows and magazines, and America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries, and she was being showcased a lot for finding Indian burial graves and other such things, and she actually got caught in the middle of planting some evidence and doing a lot of things that she shouldn't have been doing, I think out of some desire for notoriety instead of for the right reason. So,
yeah.
Again, a lot of those claims are pretty unfounded or pretty anecdotal. There are people who claim to have trailed living humans for, 5 and 6 and 8 and 10 months later. Again, I don't believe that any of those claims are true. And a lot of studies that have been done around that have actually found that a lot of that stuff is not true, unfortunately. Again, dogs are capable of a lot of great things, but it's unfortunate that sometimes people stretch that in order to make themselves or their dog look good.
Right. That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
So what about, say, where they can put a dog in a boat and they can find one in the lake? Does that kind of work the same way with the...
They're completely capable of that. That's typically what we would refer to as a water cadaver dog.
Wow.
Cadaver dogs are generally conditioned to find bodies on land or buried or suspended those are what we call land cadaver dogs or field cadaver dogs. You then have what we call disaster cadaver dogs. Those dogs are sort of specialized and capable of working scenes like you saw during 9/11, during Hurricane Katrina, some of those larger man-made or natural disasters where you have, flooded or collapsed homes and those sorts of things. And then you do have water cadaver dogs that can actually find decomp in aquatic environments and a variety of aquatic environments, whether it be creeks and streams or ponds and lakes. They can be incredibly successful if they're well trained and worked and handled the right way.
That's insane to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jason,
Yeah, humans will all guess when they're underwater, so it does give the dog something to pick up on. So
I'm blown away.
Jason, I'd read on your website. I've been through your website looking at it, and you'd had a list of dates and years for innovations in dog training. And you talked about the future of dog training and where it could possibly go. Where do you see dog training going in the future for law enforcement and different things?
Well, we've seen a substantial evolution since I've been in it. Fentanyl's a big thing for our drug dogs. It's a huge risk that, wasn't a thing when I first started, but now is obviously a major, major problem here in the United States. And as such, people have had to sort of fundamentally switch gears on the way they train and even handle some of these detection dogs because of the fact that stuff is it's out there and it's pretty dangerous, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we going to be 20 years from now? I don't think it'll be drastically different, but I think there are going to be definitely some changes. I think new threats are going to emerge for both explosive detection dogs as well as our drug dogs. I don't think that's ever going to go away, not in my lifetime anyway. Cadaver dogs, we're seeing, again, improvements just because of, again, innovations in the ability for them to procure better training aids, being able to find ways to train that we didn't have readily available 30 years ago. So, again, I think dogs are always going to be a part of our work. They have been for, thousands and thousands of years. They've worked alongside man.
That's true.
And I don't see that part of it changing at all. People have worked for years and years and years to try to design and develop instruments and machines and robots to replace dogs, and unfortunately, they've never been able to build a better mousetrap than than man's best friend. So
that is so cool.
That is crazy.
So what's some of the most amazing things you've ever seen a dog do, or crazy stories?
Probably some of the more unique things that I have seen are, dogs that have been capable of finding people that have been gone, missing, lost, whatever the case may be, for really long periods of time. What I would consider long periods of time, 24 hours plus. That's pretty remarkable. Again, some of the more obscure things I find of considerable interest. Like I said, the conservation dogs is something we've always been intrigued by and have always jumped at the opportunity to get involved with on some level. Like I said, with bats and bumblebees and endangered species. So that's always going to be something we're going to try to get involved in and get involved in more. So again, they are remarkable animals, and like I said, we've worked alongside them for thousands of years, and I think we're still learning from them every single day. I know I am. So,
wow. So earlier you said working life. You used that term, working life. So on the dog, do they work for so many years and they're like, okay, I'm tired of this, and they retire, or they just go till they get a little bit old to do the job, or is there working life, I guess, like you said, and then they're adopted out, or how does that work for a retired dog?
Typically speaking, they're gonna they're going to work until they have some sort of medical or physical issue that creates a situation where it's just uncomfortable or unpleasant for them to continue working. So usually it's either cognitive decline or some decline in their overall health that's going to create a situation where they can't work anymore. And at that time, they'll generally make a decision to retire them. And then once those dogs are retired, they will most of the time go and live with their handler.
Oh, good.
And their family. Go live with their handler and family, and live out the rest of their life. I was fortunate enough, my first police dog lived with me for the balance of his life. And he lived to almost be 17.
Wow.
He retired at 12 and almost lived to be 17.
That's good to know. I was sitting here thinking, man, I hate the dog is up there and busts his butt and works hard, for several years, and then it's time for do that, and so they're just like, well, boot them off if you're done, But if they get to go home with their dad, I'm sure they're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them get to go, like I say, be part of the family and hang out and, rest for a bit, because those dogs put in the work during their working life. A lot of them really, really do. Well, I say they put in the work. We call it work. They don't call it work. They see it as a big game, typically.
Yeah, it's not work for them.
Nah, no.
That's just pretty cool.
Right. I guess when they're working all the time, I guess they don't really get to be like the family dog, do they? Because it's just like you got to stay business all the time. Because, I don't know. Or is that a misconception?
Well, it not really. It depends on it really depends on that handler. It depends on how they integrate them into their family, what their agency's policies will allow them to do, those sorts of things. So, some of them live in the home, some of them stay in the kennels and go to work every day. So, it really sort of depends on how that's structured with that agency.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good answer, because I wasn't even thinking about it. Agency guidelines and that kind of thing would dictate what goes on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every department sort of has its own, they sort of have their own way of doing things. We've worked with tons and tons of them over the years, and never really surprised when I see somebody do something a little different.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of going on.
Yeah, because
this is just neat.
I'm just learning a lot. This is good stuff. Yeah, because we've talked about dogs so much on our show, we didn't know much about them, how they work, and how
impressive they are.
Yeah, and how they are trained. I had no clue.
Yeah, a lot of misconceptions about the dogs, their selection, and what's able to be a police dog, what's not. We get a lot of people at our facility here, just north of Charlotte. We get people call us quite a bit and say, "Hey, I've got the perfect dog for you. It's bitten like 6 or 7 people, and it sniffs the ground a lot. So I think it's going to make a great police dog." But the reality is those are not typically not traits that we're looking for.
I guess not.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Jason, man, that was awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
We really I really appreciate your time. We know you're busy and you've been out of town for weeks, and then you come back and just dropped everything to talk to us for a little while. So we just want to thank you so much for coming in and enlightening us and our listeners about what you do and how it goes, and just a little bit of information on the inside.
Yeah, I had no clue. We talk about dogs, but yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about dogs forever. I like it.
Yeah, maybe we come down and visit you sometime. This is pretty cool. I'd love to see you.
I'd love to see the operation.
You're more to. We're like I said, we're about an hour due north of Charlotte, North Carolina, on Interstate 77. You get off at exit 65, and we're about 4 minutes. So we've got our school here, and we've also got our training facility as well. We're up here training dogs every day of the week. So guys ever get up this way, definitely reach out to us, and we'd love to have you by.
Well, don't invite us if you don't want us to come, because we'll be there.
We might just show up.
So,
we'd love to have you.
how many folks do you have on hand there? Is it just you and your wife? I'm sure you have to have a team if you're doing this many dogs.
Yeah, we've grown quite a bit over the years. We got a pretty good team. I think overall the number of employees that we have here at our North Carolina facilities probably in the range of 20 to 25.
Wow.
And then we've got contractor locations throughout the United States, and then we also we've got another school for dog trainers in Alabama, just north of Birmingham, about 40 minutes north of Birmingham, that teaches folks how to train dogs. And then we just opened our most recent one about a year ago in Texas, down the hill country of Texas. That's where I was at last week when we were talking. So.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's awesome, man.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
So give his name of his company and stuff again, Donnie, and we'll run that down.
Yeah.
Before we let him go.
Yeah, this is Jason Purgason. He is owner and operator of Highland Canine Training LLC. Yeah.
And if you want to reach out to him, what's the best way to get a hold of you, Jason?
Our website, highlandcanine.com. We're on social, Facebook, Instagram. You can find us just about anywhere. So go to the internet, and my name's hard to spell, so just highlandcanine.com is probably the best way to get in touch with us.
I will put a link to your website and all your socials in our show notes for this episode, so folks can find it, and we'll put it on our socials too, so people can find it and give you credit for what you do, man.
Man,
give
we
you some
really
attention. Yeah, certainly.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, Jason, you have a good night, man. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
All
right, bye-bye.
All right, Dale. We want to thank Jason again for contributing to the show.
Wow, man. He was the show. I don't think
that is just a wealth of knowledge right there that that law enforcement and other agencies use these dogs for.
And so much stuff he does, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a wide spectrum of
and we didn't even get into the other stuff about service dogs for helping handicapped people or things like that.
Emotional support.
We didn't even get into that.
Or no, none of that.
No.
Well, we only have so much time. But good thing he did. He said, he'd always love to do another episode if we look down the road. So if you guys would like that, you dig this episode, or if you have questions you'd like us to pass on, we'll start a thread, or you can send them to us and we'll jot them down. And then next time through, we'll use that as a starting point or something. But
yeah,
I think it's really cool for him to volunteer to come back later if we want to do another episode sometime, because, man, what a wealth of knowledge, like you said, and we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, we want to keep this theme going, interviewing people who help law enforcement and help agencies to solve crimes and things.
They're branching out, man.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, and it's a lot of stuff that we all talk about or all hear all the time, but you don't know that much about it when it comes right down to it.
Educate people.
Look at you.
Yeah, I know a big word or two. That's right. All right, bud. It's been fun. We're going to get out of here.
All right, let's roll.
We want everyone to be safe. Just please be careful out there and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.